Okay, what's up, Kasey?
What's up? We're back again.
We are back, and yeah, today's gonna be a little tender episode. I feel like, yeah, like I personally in my world, I've really journeyed and had to really be with myself with the parts of me that never feel like I'm not enough. Like this is like a constant message that I grew up with as a young girl and, growing up on the streets when I ran away and like being in abusive relationships and yada, yada, yada. The stories are old and long. And for anyone that has ever felt that way, that feeling of feeling like they're not enough, it really can shape who you think you are, with your thoughts and your behaviors and how you react and respond to people that you care about or people that you don't even know. And yeah, just even the jobs you take, the relationships you go into, all kinds of things. So I feel really passionate and even just inspired to kind of talk about um, this not enough feeling and like kind of how that shapes our reality. Because it's really been alive in my world lately.
Yeah, I feel the exact same. It's something that I have only even been able to address, I would say, in the past like 8 months. Before that, like, of course, it was there. I just wasn't aware of it. Like, it was manifesting in like all these different behaviors and patterns and just poor coping mechanisms. But at the time, I wasn't aware that like the root was this feeling of like unworthiness or just like not being good enough. And it's been a fascinating journey to really see that like almost I would say like the majority of poor behaviors and patterns that I've had come from this like root of just like
Mm-hmm.
unworthiness. Like
Mm-hmm.
it really is such a core cause of a lot of the things that we deal with and a lot of the things that we go through. And I think like you would be hard pressed to find a human being on planet Earth that has never felt like they weren't good enough. Like, I
Yeah.
think that just like is something that's in everyone at some point in your life, like whatever it was, maybe like you felt maybe like neglected from a parent or they left and then you didn't understand why because you didn't have those, those coping mechanisms when you're younger, or even just something as simple as like a friend said something to you on the playground in like the fourth grade and it stuck with you. And
Mm-hmm.
it can just be something that's so simple as that, and that story sticks with you. Like I said, you would be very hard pressed to find someone who hasn't dealt with the feeling of like unworthiness.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And it really does stem, from you when you are a young kid, when you don't have the understanding nor the ability to regulate your own nervous system. So you kind of sit in this feeling of like, oh, like my heart isn't cared for. I feel neglected. Like, what did I do wrong? Like that's where our mind goes because you're a kid. Like your parents, your caregivers, your lack of caregivers, the people around you, like your friends, whoever it is around you in those moments. Your heart's desire is to connect. You have that feeling, and you also have, like, it's innocent, to want to look out for other people and to reach out to other people and to create connections and love someone else and feel loved by someone else too. And as a kid, you quite frankly need that. Like, you absolutely need that to survive. You look at animals in the wild, if they're not given their parents and, they're not, the birds don't have the nest, like they die, essentially. Same with babies, they newborn babies, if they're not given their parents to provide and care for them, they will perish, unfortunately. So same thing as kids, they really do need their parents nervous system essentially to help them regulate their emotions. Like, there's actually that the cry out method. Do you know the whole story around this?
The cry it out method?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so like I don't even know. I've been meaning, I keep forgetting to ask my mom if she did that for me. I don't even, she may have. I don't know.
I was a cry it out baby.
You were a cried out baby?
Yeah.
Oh god, I already knew. I'm just kidding. I knew it.
Yeah, like what we're saying when we talk about the cry it out method, I think what you're saying is like a lot of parents back in the day were taught to just let their babies cry it out. And the concept behind it was like when the baby stops crying, it's like, oh, they've learned to self-soothe. But that's actually inaccurate. And my understanding of it is like when the baby stops crying, it's not that they've soothed themselves, it's that they've actually given up and realized that like nobody is coming to help you, nobody is coming to make you feel better, and they essentially just give up and they just stop crying.
Yeah, and it's because of the way so like there's been a lot of progressive research and understanding with the nervous system. Like I'm sure anyone that's listening to our podcast likely has heard either us talk about it or follows other accounts or read something about the nervous system. It's like the new buzzword in self-development and healing.
Trauma and nervous system.
Yeah, like
words.
buzzwords.
Yeah.
Exactly, yeah. So if you likely have heard that. If you haven't, you know that there are like layers of the nervous system that are react, sorry, in stages of harm, or, to alert just our nervous system that something's unsafe or there's something wrong and you need to do something. And the nervous system does it in a way that we don't have to consciously think about it. It's all unconscious, and that's how our nervous system responds to keep us safe. So, in the framework of this baby crying out for its mother, the baby will initially cry because they're hungry, their diaper's wet or dirty, and they need to be clean because it's unfucking comfortable. No one wants to sit in their fecal matter. It's fair. Another reason why is simply just for connection. Like think about being inside a womb for 9 months of your entire existence. That's all you've ever known. And all of a sudden you've been birthed into this cold, bright, alone world, and it's dry and you're still being wet and like all these like different things. And it was warm. So now you're in this new world. You have to cope with that. And part of that is having that connection and that skin to skin contact and, being nurtured and care, like all these things, right? These things that the baby needs. So that connection is, and the bonding is so important. So these are reasons, some main reasons. There's other random reasons babies cry too, but they're all out of need. So our nervous system will do things like that, crying. It'll also shake. It'll also, our legs, our hips and everything will tense up if we're afraid, because we're priming our body, our lower body, to run. So these are actual things that our nervous system intelligently does for us. We don't have to consciously think about it. It just does it so we don't die. So like the different reactions would be like to run, to fight, to like flee, run, flee, thing like that. And so as these strategies, these ways to survive, are exhausted. So for a baby, their first line, because they don't know how to talk, they don't know how to walk, they don't know how to do anything.
Communicate.
Exactly. Their first and only form really is to cry. So they will cry. And when that doesn't work anymore, and this is kind of actually a bit of a darker story in my past, but I've been around babies that have been neglected before. I'm not going to get into the nitty gritty because it is really personal. I'd rather not share. But I've been around babies that have been neglected and actually abused. And I was able to witness one kind of go through these phases where he didn't really cry. And, what's really fascinating about this is not really fascinating. It's kind of sad and morbid, but what's, I guess, fascinating anyways, is that, we pride and we rejoice kids and babies when they're quiet. It's like, oh, you're such a good baby. You don't even cry. You haven't made a peep. Da, da, da. It's like, what if they're actually terrified? And this was just my relationship with this specific baby, who didn't really cry. And I remember, and I was 14, 15 years old at the time, I remember just feeling uncomfortable with it. Like, I'm like, oh, what's wrong with this baby? He's not really doing anything. It's just there. Yeah. And anyways, I learned later on that the baby was actually quite literally traumatized because of other things. And so anyways, kind of back onto the track with this cry out method. What happens is they exhaust the crying out. They realize that this strategy to seek out help isn't working. So the next thing that our nervous system, and I can't remember, it's escaping me now because I'm horrible with terms, but there's different nervous systems. So I believe it's going into this way of immobilization. I believe it's the parasympathetic, and I could be wrong, but anyways, it's going from like the fight, or the kind of like the outward way to communicate and to like cry and to all these other things, and now that's not working. It's going to a lower system of our nervous system where everything kind of stops working. And this is because it's trying to really, essentially, I can't think of the right word, but you can imagine a possum. Possums are really good at this. They play dead when they're in the face of. Did you not know this?
No.
Oh my god.
That's why you brought up possum, and I'm like, what?
Yeah.
Where's
so
this
like,
going?
yeah. Sorry, I didn't know. You know, I thought this was like common knowledge. I love animals, by the way. I used to watch Animal Planet all the time. You learn a lot of amazing things, especially mammals. So like mammals actually have a very similar nerve. Like they have the nerve system like us. Like it's very simple. So it's like really cool to watch animals. Anyways, a possum, when they're in the face of danger, they just play dead. It's actually quite smart, and you'll observe it too. I actually watch my cat outside. Also an amazing thing. If you guys ever can watch an animal, just observe an animal. So my cat, there's like voles in our backyard. I'm going through all these stories right now. my cat will attack these voles with a V, voles. And there's like these little ugly little mouse-like mole creature. It's like the mix if they two had a baby. This is a vole. So
I also never heard of a vole.
Oh, okay, you're learning all these animal facts. This is awesome. So anyways, these voles, whatever, he chases them, and like they'll fight back. They're like, wee! They'll jump up. But there's a point where this vole knows that I'm not winning in this strategy. One, because it's getting exhausted, and two, like this other bigger creature is just overpowering it. So the only other strategy they have left is to play dead, because a lot of the time a predator will just leave you alone because they would like the fight. You know, there's a lot of predators out there that, for example, my cat will just play with you until you die. So if you die, it'll leave you alone.
Yeah, that's why it says, like, if you've ever lived in bear country and you've like gone hiking and stuff like that, you're never supposed to, like, if you come across a bear, you're never supposed to turn and run, because then their predatory like instincts kick in and they're like, oh, chase, and then they will chase you. Whereas are actually supposed to just play dead when it comes to bears.
Exactly. So our nervous systems, let's see how intelligent they are. Like if at a mind level, like, no, I need to fight to the death, right? Like, but our nervous system completely immobilizes us. It shuts us down to play dead. And possums just do it immediately. There's no like, it just plays dead. So anyways, they mastered it. So for the baby, with the cry out method, eventually babies will completely be exhausted, realize that's not working, and they'll stop crying. And they'll completely just stop crying, and they'll freeze. And you'll see, like, if you ever are able to witness something like this, and I pray to God that no one ever has to, and no baby is left this way, you'll see them shivering. Like they'll be there shivering, tremoring, terrified, and it's just because their whole body, and you can't like even vocalize anymore. For another example, I've been in situations where it has been so terrifying. I also had dreams like this too, where you're just so afraid and terrified, nothing can come out. Like there's no, like, you can't even scream. Like you're in shock. In shock is like a perfect example of that. So yeah, our nervous systems are super intelligent. So yeah, the cry out method, it's just not supportive to how the nervous system works, and baby's needs, essentially, to develop into a healthy human being whose nervous system knows how to regulate.